telling us and the team that what we've made is fun is literally the highest compliment. Our intention is to do that. We think that it's actually like a key performance metric.
Today we're chatting with Marcus Estes about vibe coding and his startup VIBES.DIY.
I'm Marcus Estes, the co-founder and business guy at VIBES.DIY, and I'm a trained enough startup dog at this point. Start with the problem that we're solving in order to pitch it. Briefly, vibe coding is still kind of hard. A lot of people that are doing it, unless they're very expert already at software development, are having various ways to hit a stumbling block. And the problem is because we're still trying to vibe code with yesterday's stack, technologies that were built for a different class of developer. So what we've done at Vibes is really cool. It's basically, we've decided to rethink the web stack and design it specifically for the needs of vibe coders. So what we basically accomplished is that if you're vibe coding and if you use our open source stuff, it's going to be really quick and easy to get to production ready functioning applications. And importantly, it's going to be secure by default. We've taken a really interesting approach to making sure that you don't get hacked, which is a nerve-wracking thing if you don't know what you're doing. So in short, it's a stack for people that want to go fast, even if they don't have a ton of traditional senior development experience.
I know it's kind of one of those terms that the industry seemed to glom onto and adopt pretty much immediately, but could you give a little basic, like, what even is vibe coding? When someone says vibe coding, what are they talking about?
Yeah, I love to discuss this because frankly, the term has gotten so widely used that we still talk about it every day. What is this? Basically in short, vibe coding it speaks to the practice of code generation with AI. But even more specifically, so, engineers were doing code generation for several years before this whole vibe coding thing spun up. So what happened specifically is the term was coined by this really influential machine learning guy, Andrej Karpathy. And it was just February of this year. And he said, lately, I've been doing this thing where I decide to basically kind of take my hands off the steering wheel and just accept what the AI is giving me without trying to understand it. So if you want to be very precise, people throw the word around. Vibe coding for me it's not just code gen. It's doing basically zero code review. It means that you've taken the AI's output and said, I'm going to trust it. I'm going to mostly stay in an English language place and not try to be a real developer while we work. Importantly, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not a real developer. It's just a way of making things, and it's trusting in the machine on some level.
That's super helpful. One of the things, and because I come into this with some prior knowledge, I usually ask folks kind of what inspired them, but I know with your particular startup that there was some other magic technology piping that lives slightly behind the scenes of VIBES.DIY. Maybe talk a little bit about that initial product and how that became something that empowered you to pursue this kind of VIBES.DIY startup.
Yeah, this is like the behind the music documentary about our startup. I love telling the story. So it really starts off. There's kind of two separate stories about how the founders came together. So my co-founder at Vibes is an old friend of mine, Chris Anderson, also a local Portland engineering, in my mind, star. I don't know if you'd let me say it if he was in person, but previously you might have heard Chris was a co-founder and co-creator of one of the first document databases. It's called CouchDB, and that was just a tremendously successful project. It was adopted globally by corporations. They took it public, and he did that whole ride with them from the start to the exit. And so what's cool about Chris is that even after all of that success and invention, he wasn't done. You just know that this is a problem that this guy's meant to solve, because after Couch, he kind of wandered through these various technical communities with a hunch. And so what he ended up doing is inventing a new database. And that database is called Fireproof. And importantly, Fireproof is in fact the essence of all the magic. We are in fact fundamentally a database company to this day. But Fireproof, when I joined up with Chris, Chris was kind of in this place that a lot of us get when we're approaching a pure technology, it's pure innovation. And he said, I really want help thinking about how to commercialize this. And he reached out to me, and of course, I'm such a fan of what he's invented. It was just an immediate yes. And now my part of the story is that I'm probably the most amongst the most enthusiastic, practitioners of vibe coding. My story about vibe coding is, like many of us, man, like I started my career in my early 20s as a developer, but just as an especially shit one, pardon my French. I basically was someone driven by the idea side of that. And without resources, you are left to make stuff. The moment I found better technical partners, I kind of quit coding, man. And, on some level I was coding like from a very young age, but it wasn't really a good business move for me at some point to be a professional coder. And so what happened to me is, frankly, like as an art form, as something that is just, fun and inspiring, I really missed it. But I felt a bit left behind by the increasingly complex web stack so I never really got into this front end frameworks. I mean, frankly, so the point being, I as soon as vibe coding was a thing, I mentioned Karpathy coined the phrase. What I did is went and started organizing vibe coding communities. And I am, in fact, the organizer of some of the largest vibe coding communities on the web. This includes the Reddit R vibe coding community, as well as the Discord vibe coding server, and some other kind of nooks and crannies as well. So I had a lot of understanding of this brand new cultural thing and why it was important, and I was, most importantly, like identified. And this, Chris and I eventually just like had this eureka together, which is that Fireproof is perfect for people that are looking to vibe code applications, and specifically for the reasons I mentioned. It is basically something, and I won't go into crazy technical detail until you ask me to, but in short, Fireproof is a database that just mostly lives on your browser. There's not a big complex web server that it needs. So if you're vibe coding and you're given a chance to skip the hard part, skip the virtual machines, skip all that stuff, you simply get productive faster. You make a front end, you wire it up to this beautiful little magical thing. And so we tested that theory. We started asking models to make apps for us, and we were just amazed by the output. So we decided to, frankly, I don't think it's a pivot. It did require that we kind of look at this as a new market for the tech. And then we've also built more tech to serve that market. And that all happened this year. We're still very much an early stage company, even though the database has got roots now going back to like 2018.
Yeah, I can remember when Chris first introduced it to me, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And it wasn't until Marcus was like, hey, we built this thing on top of the thing. And I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah. I mean, so like Fireproof, this is really interesting. So Fireproof is funny because like the point of it is to be easy to make stuff with, always was. Mm-hmm. But the way that it makes things easy is by using just a blinding amount of hardcore tech. So, this is why it's always been a little hard to describe. If you want to understand how it's made, you might need to be like a hardcore database guy. But now that you can just kind of point and click your way through just enjoying the benefits, it's easier to show than to tell, basically.
I would usually ask at this point, change gears a little bit, and ask you for advice for startup founders, and you absolutely have the option to give that. I think as a founder, you often have insights that are valuable to your peers, but I wonder if I also might lean on you or ask that you provide one piece of advice for somebody who's maybe thinking about dipping their toe into vibe coding, but maybe hasn't had the opportunity or motivation to do so yet.
I love this prompt. This is awesome. Everything is a prompt to me.
Makes sense.
So you understand. I've become an old dog, right? I've done a couple startups now. Got an exit behind me. I've got a lot of experience with accelerators, and I will say that, like it or not, you get wise by virtue of your mistakes. And I have made a lot of terrible mistakes, and I'm naturally very motivated to share those when I can. And I like mentorship. I mean, if you're listening, if you're younger, if this is like, if you're kind of considering jumping in here, please do honestly reach out to me, especially if you're in the Portland area. I will always sit someone down for coffee and just share. And so in one line right now, I think that probably the best advice I have both for early stage startup people thinking about a startup, and it's the same advice for people thinking about vibe coding. It's very easy to have a concept, and if you're a conceptual person, it's a very good, strong, rich concept. And then you have what your means to execute that concept. And of course, probably there's a huge gap there. You might think, well, gosh, if I just had the right team together, this would kick ass. And certainly if I had the capital to do this and I could quit my job, I can't really do anything until I do that. Here's my advice: just get started. Just, let me quote another local axiom: just do it. Just find. See, this is where it connects to vibe coding. A lot of the limitations before were around that product, that technical. Consider this a prototype. Vibe coding doesn't have to be permanent code. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither do any of us. This is an art form for people that don't know what you're doing. You have to wander in through that uncomfortable early part, and you might think, crisis of confidence, like, I promise you I'm not a software developer. What I'm here to say, I promise you actually are. So find a way to connect your current resources with a piece of your vision, not the right piece, the full, perfect, final piece, but part that vision out into pieces that you can get started on. And it is in the process of starting a thing and to getting that bad, ugly, early prototype version, that's when you're going to find out what it really is. You're also going to put that in front of the right people. Someone's going to be like, you need to meet my friend. That's how your team will come together. And all the things that will unlock in this iterative way. Nothing will happen if you don't just sit down and start working on it. Just find some time.
Love it. That's really good advice. And you touched on something that Ward Cunningham, who we were lucky enough to have in Pi for a while, he's the guy who created the wiki way back in the day. One of his kind of go-tos was putting something broken in front of people will get you far better feedback than putting something perfect in front of people. And that was just kind of the way that he did his work. And I think what you're speaking to, Marcus, is very similar. It's like, I think we all have this desire to make sure it's perfect before we put it out there. And in actuality, that can be more detrimental to your progress than helpful.
100%. Ward has actually been someone that's been so influential intellectually on my career. And frankly, most of us in tech have benefited not just from the wiki, but from that part of that practice that you're referring to, right, is agile development. And it turns out the same way that he was arguing to make software applies not just to the production of code, but to the production of the business. And I have tended to find to the production of my laundry at home. Well, it's agile everything, baby. It really, it's a constant discipline. It's not like you just figure it out. You got to hold yourself to it like a religion, but it really produces results.
As a serial founder now, like, what is it? Could be a business-oriented resource or a personal-oriented resource. Like, what is one part of your existence, like a resource that you use consistently that you find indispensable to your existence as a founder?
There's one really correct answer for me, and I kind of argue this should be an answer for everybody, especially in this day and age. The resource is your communities, and we are now at a phase of the entrepreneurial cycle. Over the years, it really can be argued at this point that every good business, frankly, needs to begin its life kind of as a community. And you might think in the past, we'll make a product and we'll market the product and then we'll build a community around the product. Well, let's invert that and let's find communities first and learn from those communities, right? So in my case, that's absolutely been these vibe coding communities that I help organize. I learn everything from those people, from watching them, and frankly, not just from observing, but really jumping in and participating, leading. And these are all principles I know that you've really, as a community builder, Rick, you've already established these principles. offer first, don't take. It's being a part of a community is it's a give and take, and the resources available are just numerous. It's not just what should I build, what do people need, how do people think. It's also, frankly, human connections, right? We have so much of our actual like emotional ties come from our shared interests and hobbies at this point. So the same thing would apply. Every community resource that you've ever built, the amount of value that spins out of that, my gosh, if you're an operator and you're not spending an inordinate amount of time, I'm saying literally hang out and offer help, pay attention, meet people, offer for no good reason to buy someone coffee or hop on a call. And even if you have a half a hunch about what that's about, go chase those relationships. And that's my answer above any other resource.
Love that. And in that vein, communities, in my opinion, should always be mutually beneficial for people who are giving. How can we be most helpful to you or to VIBES.DIY right now?
I've got a really fun answer for this, I think. I'll give you some context briefly. So I mentioned that we're a web stack, right? So the fastest way to experience a Vibes app made with this open source stack is just this website that we made as kind of an early release of technology. It's not the complete vision, but so if someone can go in with an understanding of kind of like this is essentially a developer preview, we really just need people to use it and give feedback. The website that I would have people go to create an account, it's VIBES.DIY. And here's the fun thing. We have tokens, meaning the kind of what you normally would pay to get the AI to make an app. For the moment, they're just on the house. We're sponsoring those tokens for free. So you don't have to pay me any money to do this. Rather, just go give it a shot. Come up with some simple idea and prompt it into the website and see what comes out. And then lastly, we are also fostering a community on Discord at the moment. You can find a way to join. It is the VIBES.DIY Discord community. Tell us what you made, and all importantly, not just the good things. Tell us the warts as well. In short, I'll kind of give you the prompt here for thinking about these little experiments. What you're going to see is that we have these websites that are basically, for the moment, single player. So they're really fast and easy. What you can do now is get the data synced up for yourself across all your devices. So your local database is now on your phone, it's on your laptop. And then coming in a very short period of time, we're turning on, of course, the thing that will make this hopefully world-changing, the ability to invite groups of friends and to build these apps in communities together. If you come and jump in now, you're going to get the sort of first-in-line experience for this thing that we think to be ideally transformative for making a new kind of software. Small, group-oriented, community-oriented, easily accessible, secure, vibe-coded apps.
That's great. Yeah, and I can say as a user of your platform that it really is not only simple, straightforward, but it's also a fun platform to engage with. And just to the point of like, anytime I have a fleeting thought about something, like I wish I had X that did Y, and like I will go out there and see if I can build something to do that, and 9 times out of 10 I get pretty close or close enough, and even if it doesn't work, it's a great experience building on your platform. So you should be really proud of what you built. It's a really fun and engaging tool right now.
I really appreciate that, man. Telling us and the team that what we've made is fun is literally the highest compliment. Our intention is to do that. We think that it's actually like a key performance metric. I have gotten to a place personally with my own product where sometimes I like can't put it down and go to bed, because once you figure out what's possible, then you start like pounding through all these ideas, and I've got like a notebook full of like, oh man, I got a bunch of dog shit ideas that I need to get realized here quickly. So I really appreciate that. Also, yeah, thank you for sharing some of the stuff you built. I remember the Halloween
avatar builder. Yeah.
That went off internally on the Discord. You got fans. You got fans.
Amazing.
VIBES.DIY. Yeah.
Amazing. Do you have a startup story to tell? I would love to hear from you.